Welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Hard Truth Studios and brought to you by the fine folks at Hard Truth Distilling Company, located in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Of course, coming to you from high on top, Rick House number 1 in the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Hope your week has started off well. With we've got past Monday, and it won't be long. Friday will be here before you know it. Hoosier Hysteria coming up. Great lineup on the program today. Mike Decourcy from the Sporting News will join us, Chronic Hoosier, and a couple of special guests. Trisha Whitaker, who IU grad, former CBS WTTV anchor, sports anchor and reporter in Indianapolis, as well as the current sideline reporter for the Tampa Bay Rays, will join us. She is going to be emceeing Hoosier Hysteria this Friday night, and she's stoked about it, as she should be. Looking forward to that. And Zack Carpenter from Nebraska's rival site, as we'll talk a little football with someone on the other side to see what their take is. I know that in looking through a lot of things, I think some fans are confident they're going to win, and some are they know that they're in for a tough game. We'll hear from Matt Rule a little bit later on, as well as he knows what the deal is. The coaches are smart. They know what they're up against each time, both ways. So looking forward to hearing from that, as well as each and every one of you. Thank you so much, no matter where and how you're listening. Down on the ref on 97.7 ESPN, always the right call in Evansville and the surrounding areas. Up in the region, the voice of the region, 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM WJOB. And Fort Wayne Sports Station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it tuned right here after we're done for more great content on these stations. And if you're listening on YouTube, of course, we appreciate you, and throw up a comment with the rest of the fine folks in the Andy Moore Honda hotline, as it has been active already this morning. A lot of basketball talk I see. Of course, there's always a lot of basketball talk in there. You guys are nonstop with that. I'm gonna hold off as long as I can. I'm enjoying the hell out of this football season. So, basketball will be here soon enough. It'll be here long enough. I am going to enjoy the hell out of this football season, and something that is just special, more special than anything the basketball program has done in quite some time. So, and I don't mean that as a slight. It's just it is what it is. I'm going to give the football program its due, and let them bask in that glory, because, buddy, they've got a tough road to hoe coming up, beginning this Friday with the homecoming game against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who, they're not ranked in the top 25 per se. They're a top 25 team. Give me a break. They're 5-1. Their only loss is to Illinois, who is one of the upper echelon teams of the Big Ten. So this is going to be a battle. Matt Rule has done an excellent job at Nebraska. If it hadn't have been for Kurt Signetti, he'd probably be in the talks for Coach of the Year for the Big Ten. But right now, that's going to be Kurt Signetti. And 6 games to go yet. I did notice, and I can't remember who, but someone at that site must be picking Indiana to go 2-4 the remainder of the year. Because at 6-0 now, I think someone I saw predicted an 8-4 finish. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening, guys. Under no circumstances do I see this Indiana team going 2-4 over these last 6 games, which means one of those wins would be Purdue, which is a given. It also means they would lose 2 out of the 3 home games. I'm not buying that. So I'm sticking to what I'm sticking to the girl I brought to the dance. And 9-3 is the absolute bottom, but I'm still looking for that 11-1 spot to make people sweat. Make the college football playoff committee people sweat because they don't want to have to deal with an Indiana. It's too easy to not. It's easy to deal with Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. That's easy. They don't want to see an 11-1 Indiana because even if Ohio State makes it back to the Big Ten championship game, and what happens if they lose again? You're still putting them in? What if they lose to Oregon twice? Do they still go in? It's not the 2 losses that automatically kick you out, but would you put a 2-loss team in over an 11-1 team? They don't want Indiana to go 11-1. Let me tell you, that is a problem, and they don't want to have to deal with it. They do not want to have to deal with having a program that is not a name brand and that doesn't just flat out earn their way in. And that's most likely not going to be the case. Who knows? Not to say it can't happen, but I'm not planning, as optimistic as I've been for this Indiana program. I am not thinking they're going to go to Columbus and win. I've got to be honest with you. Not that it can't happen. It can. We've seen that stuff happen this year. We've seen Kentucky go to Ole Miss and then get beat at home by Vanderbilt. It's what I love about college football. And as a matter of fact, Matt Rule talked about it as well. Someone asked him, I should have had you grab that one, Rob. But there's another quote where someone asked Matt Rule about, which this is a stupid question. It was about Signetti and, when he came over, the 12 or 13 players or so that came from James Madison. And the question was, is that what we should expect from college football from going forward? And I'm like, where the hell have you been? Yes. That's a dumb question. That was just a dumb question. That was someone asking a question just for the sake of asking a question, because that one was stupid. Of course it is. It's been like that for over a year, 2 years now. So, yeah. Stig is 11-1 all time, coming off of bye weeks. There you go, John. That's a great thing to point out. And coming off of a bye week for this Nebraska game, but Nebraska also coming off of a bye week. So that's a little unusual, like I said, but that's a great stat. But we'll hear from some other stats that will surprise you on how good this Indiana team is going. So looking forward to that. I want to make sure that we don't run over here because when Mike joins us. Let's see. Last night, the Jets and Aaron Rodgers go down to the Bills in a tight game, 23-20. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers had plenty of blame to go around afterwards. with teammates not running the right routes and this, that. I'm so over Aaron Rodgers. I think I put this in a tweet last week, a response to someone. I'm so over being over Aaron Rodgers. It's not that he's not a great quarterback. He is. It's not that he's not a tremendous athlete. He is. It's not that he's not a tremendous competitor. He is. But he's just a jackwad with the stuff he says, his political stuff he says, craziness. And then, yeah, it was a lot of penalties last night. But I watched the Manning cast, so I get my humor from that. I cannot imagine watching Monday Night Football now and it not being the Manning cast. As a matter of fact, when they're not on, I generally probably don't watch. I just enjoy the humor. It's usually pretty funny, especially when you get some guy. Let's see. Dave thinks I've said the football game is on Friday night a couple of times. Yes, it is at noon. Have I said, Rob, have I said it's on Friday?
I don't think so. It's Saturday. It's Saturday.
Well, we all know it's Saturday. I just Saturday. I never had thought that in my mind because Friday is Hoosier Hysteria. So you got that going for us. If I did, it was a mistake. I certainly don't recall it, but yeah, that's not the deal. It's Saturday at noon, baby. Noon. Fox's big noon kickoff team will be in tow as well. So plenty coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Appreciate you being with us, coming to you from the Hard Truth Studios. Make sure you stop by and visit the fine folks over in Nashville at the Hard Truth Distilling Company. It is located on 325 absolutely beautiful acres of southern Indiana rolling hills. There is so much to do there, much more than just a distillery. There's distillery tours, ATV tours. You have a full service restaurant, and of course all the incredible, wonderful products from the Hard Truth Distilling Company. Make sure you enjoy them all responsibly. We've got lots more coming up. Back with it right after this. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. Okay.
Yeah, I have the rule thing now. So whenever you're ready for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll save that for either I don't have another blank, do I? Or do I? Yes, at some point. No, I do not. I don't have another opening segment, so I'll run that during the last segment with Zack Carpenter.
All right.
From Rivals.
Did you see that John Harrell dropped the likelihood for all the teams to make it to state?
Make it to state? What are you talking about? Football?
High school football. He dropped like a list of like each sectional pairing, like their odds of winning sectionals.
John Harrell that does the halftime games?
The one who he makes like a whole basketball thing. It could be
But I
him.
mean,
I don't know him, but I know his website. It keeps track of all the schedules, scores, stats, everything for high school football and basketball.
how much time we got?
About minute and a half.
All righty. Hello, King.
What's going on, Jim?
Just enjoying this Tuesday.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get it started for you guys.
All right.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Of course, coming to you from the Hall Studios. Joined now by our good friend Mike Decourcy from the Sporting News. Mike, I got to deal with a bye week for Indiana football this week, and first of all, let me just say it was glorious. It was awesome. Because I did not have to work on a Saturday, and I loved it. But also, I got to watch a lot of football. That was my favorite. I mean, from game day and Fox on through about 1 a.m. until I fell asleep, I think. And there were some really good games, and of course, it starts with Ohio State and Oregon, which Oregon had not sold me yet, but okay, now they beat Ohio State. They slayed the dragon. I still think Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten. I think that they just screwed up with their time management. But they won, so to the victor go the spoils.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I looked at that and I thought, okay, so how could they have managed the time differently? And I thought it was a really smart move by Oregon to take the purposeful penalty, the intentional penalty.
12 men on the field, yeah.
12 men on the field. That was a smart play because it ate up time. And if there's any penalty you want to take, it's like, okay, put too many guys out there so they can't do anything. It's a really smart play that they made. I think that the college football is going to have to figure out whether there's some way to address that. Dan Lanning did a really smart thing there, and it worked out. They only had one timeout. Could they have spent it? I think sometimes coaches are a little bit too protective of that final timeout because the seconds matter more, because there are ways to stop the clock beyond the timeout. And you're not always going to get to all of them, but you can't create more seconds. They are finite. And
unless you're in the Russian Olympics.
Yeah.
basketball.
There you go. Yes, I remember that well. 1972. So I'm not sure they managed it that badly. They made some mistakes along the way. Certainly, the onside kick was one that was a significant issue. They were not ready for that, and they were not ready for the nature of that onside kick. I was really surprised Todd Blackledge didn't think that was purposeful. The blasting the kick at a particular defender. It was obviously genius from the moment it happened, and it certainly wasn't fail-safe. But in that circumstance, one of the reasons why that's a brilliant play is because they're not expecting it. And if you miss him, then it just becomes basically a squib kick. So that's fine. It's from the 50-yard line, a squib kick is going to wind up at the 20, and then you just have to make sure you cover it. So it was a brilliant play. And
Absolutely.
I didn't understand the consternation he had in that moment, that it wasn't purposeful. It was not only purposeful, it was genius. I mean, Lanning made two really brilliant plays in that. And Ohio State defensively, they sometimes get a little vanilla. And this goes back a long way because they know they got better guys than most of the teams that they play against. And they were vanilla again in this game, a little bit too predictable. And they weren't able to hold up as well as they wanted to what Oregon was bringing. And it cost them. Now, one of the interesting things about this college football season, Jim, is that that game was a fabulous game. And then there are the traditionalists, shall we call them, who are trying to present that, well, it didn't matter because they'll both get in the playoff and blah, blah. You think it didn't matter to Oregon? Come on. I mean, what are we watching here? Like this mentality has got to go. It was what held college football back for 100 years. And now you see what the result is. I went to a game on Saturday in Pittsburgh. Pitt played Cal. And now, look, we don't know that Pitt's going to win the ACC, but we know that in order to do that, they had to win on Saturday. And it was a tremendous, beautiful day for college football. It was not a brilliantly played game, but it was highly suspenseful. And it all feeds into if Pitt wins that game and they continue to win, they'll have a shot at winning the ACC. And if they have a shot at winning the ACC, they don't go to the Peach Bowl so that their starting quarterback, Kenny Pickett, can sit out. No, they go to the playoff and play a real game and have a chance at a national championship. That's what this is all about. That's why Saturday is probably the biggest game in Indiana football history. Maybe not the biggest game they'll ever play, because after that you got Michigan, and after that you got Ohio State. But you can say that it's the biggest game in Indiana football history, because in it, the door stays open, and that door is to something that they never imagined that they could enter.
Yeah, because before you joined us, I was talking about the fact that in no way, shape, or form does the college football playoff committee want to see an 11-1 Indiana football team. Because more than likely, I think Oregon now can either run the table with their schedule or at worst go 11-1. Ohio State 11-1 at worst, probably, with potentially a loss to Penn State. I don't know, because that's at Penn State. Penn State, same difference. They're in that same boat, 12-0, 11-1. And because of, I don't know that I don't have the tiebreakers memorized, but if Ohio State were to lose to both Oregon and Penn State, and Indiana went 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State, how does that work?
First of all, as far as I know, the Big Ten championship game will be played between number 1 and number 2. There are no divisions now. Okay, so Ohio State would be out in that equation because they would have lost 2 games. So now you still have Oregon, and then you have Indiana, Penn State. Presumably, under your scenario, Penn State has beaten Ohio State. And we don't know whether they'd stay undefeated. I don't know the schedule. Does Penn State play Oregon? Do they have a game?
I do not think so. And I'm also on the premise that even if you're an 11-1 team, if you're in the Big Ten championship game and you lose, that's a pass. That's not I don't know that counts against you, and I don't think that it should. I'm like, hey, this is kind of a different deal. So I don't count that as a second loss, just like Ohio. Right. Say if Ohio State had a second loss going into it.
Well, I'm just under your scenario, though. You've already given Ohio State 2 losses. So
right. Just in case that's the case, I'm just because we know that they want Ohio State in that playoff.
Right. So if Ohio State were to lose that game at Penn State would then have Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland, and surprisingly, 3 of those are in a row or on the road. The Purdue game is up in West Lafayette, then Minnesota and Minneapolis. Oh, I'm sorry. Then the Maryland game is in College Park. Is in State College, excuse me. So 2 of those are home, 2 of those are on the road. None of them are against great opponents. Maybe Minnesota could beat you, certainly. But probably then you're looking at Oregon and Penn State in your scenario as the Big Ten championship contenders, the 2 that would play in Indianapolis. And then Ohio State would be sitting there with 2 losses, but Indiana in your scenario would be sitting there with 1. I think they all make it. I mean, it's way ahead to be talking about that, but I think they all make it. One of the reasons why I believe that is that in preparing last week for an article that I wrote about that meeting that they had in Nashville last week, the SEC and the Big Ten administrators had in Nashville, I wrote about how I don't care what they do with the college football playoff payouts. If the SEC and Big Ten, then they already have said basically that they're going to get 60% of the money. If they wanted to say even more, whatever, but don't mess with the product. Don't create automatic bids for the SEC and the Big Ten beyond the championships bid. And one of the reasons why I don't want them to do that is the main reason is because it destroys the integrity of the championship playoff. What we have now is exactly what you want to have: a championship playoff with defined automatic qualification for the champions. That's what you should have. And then everybody else should be put in the same boat. However, in that boat, Jim, you're basically looking at, in most years, 3 to 5 total bids for the SEC and the Big Ten. You're not going to get 5 in both, but there have been years. I went back all 10 years using current membership and said, okay, if we had these rules and you looked at the final college football playoff rankings, how many teams would each league get? And it averages out to 4 per year. Every year, some years 3, some years 5, most years 4, but it averages out to that. So you don't need to say, you don't need to carve it into a tablet. We're getting 4, they're getting 4. You don't have to, because you're going to get them anyway. You're going to earn them because those are the teams you're putting on the field. And this year, if your scenario were to develop, I believe that all 4 would make it. The SEC is struggling in some ways. I mean, Texas has been brilliant, but the SEC has been struggling to find the other 3 or identify the other 3. I mean, Georgia almost lost to Mississippi State the other night. I mean, they didn't almost lose, but they played terribly. Yeah. So we don't know how good they are. I think in the end, I think that's really going to help establish this playoff. And I was pleased to hear Greg Sankey in particular, who I do wonder about him in regards to that, grabbing the auto bids. I was pleased to see him say that they wanted to see how this played out, because watch it play out, watch what it's done to this season and how everybody was hanging on the end of that Penn State SC game and how everybody was hanging on to the end of that Oregon Ohio State game and how everybody was hanging on to the end of Georgia, Alabama, because all these games matter now. There were so many seasons, Jim, where Nebraska comes to Indiana and everybody yawns because they know that Indiana is not going to probably win all 12 games. And they know that at the end of the day, now that we're going to the old scenario, that Indiana at best finishes second in the East, to Ohio State, and Ohio State goes to Indianapolis to play who would be now, I guess it'd be Nebraska. And then Ohio State rolls through, and then they go to the playoff, and everybody else just goes to some silly bowl game. Now Indiana's actually playing for a chance to play for a championship. That game, that's why Saturday's game is so immense in ways that it could never have been before, even if it was exciting and fun and all that, and a great football Saturday in Bloomington, it never carried the consequence that it carries this weekend. And that's why they need to stick with this format. Now, if they want to go to 14, have at it. If you think that's the way you want to go, if you think it'll help you make more money, get more teams, whatever. I can live with that because the real number should always have been 16 anyway. So if they want to go to 14, fine. But don't change the auto bid process because you're going to get plenty of bids anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you and wholeheartedly, and let it just play itself out. Because then teams may be just shooting, if we do this, if we can just do this, we'll get that lower end. And right now, everyone's fighting for the top to be the best because that's all that there is. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that the Big Ten can get 4 in. I just know that Indiana's not on everyone's favorite list just because they're not a traditional power. They don't bring that traditional steam with it like, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, et cetera. But speaking of which, what was a bigger win, Penn State at USC or Oregon over Ohio State?
I think it was bigger for Penn State to win that game because Penn State has Ohio State coming up. And if they lost that SC game, then they'd be looking at the possibility of 2 losses. And I'm not saying no one will get in with 2 losses, but the 2-loss team, if there is one that gets in, will be the one that's hanging by the fingernails on Selection Sunday. And so I think that it was bigger. It was huge for Oregon because they now are in the, they're the main team to try to make the championship, the Big Ten championship in their first year. And they looked terrific in a lot of ways on Saturday night. They not in the spitting incident. That was not a good look. But Dylan Gabriel was terrific. Their receivers were hard to cover. Their offensive line did a great job controlling the Ohio State pass rush. And the coach was really on top of things with at least 2 significant contributions strategically to the victory. I mean like game decisions. Obviously they made, great decisions in terms of building up their game plan, et cetera. But those 2 strategic decisions were decisive in a game that went down to the final seconds.
And how about the games we get? These are regular season games now that we're going to get from now on. Michigan, whether it's Michigan, USC, and now in teams like Indiana and Illinois who are rising up. Illinois is a Nebraska. Just teams that Nebraska has been like IU basketball, a traditional power that had just been percolating under the surface to rise back up again. And under Matt Rule, they're doing a really good job of that. But I have loved college football as it continues to morph from the transfer portal area. And I know that an NIL probably as well, but there is a very leveling factor to this, man. There's no way that Vanderbilt beats Alabama and follows it with a road win at Kentucky, who went to Ole Miss and beat Lane Kiffin. I might get the hell out of here. That does not happen. And it is happening. And I love it.
My friend Pat Forty did a terrific article about the Ohio State Oregon game and why it was still consequential and sort of pushing back against that old guard mentality that every game mattered before, even though every game didn't matter before. If you lost that game, it was so devastating, it was so consequential, and you had no way back and all that. First of all, that was a lie, Jim. Because every time Alabama lost a regular season game, they still found a way to put them in the playoff because they were Alabama. So it was nonsense. And second of all, every game matters now because the road is open to you. If you're Penn State and you go to Southern Cal and you get that win, And yeah, you still have to play Ohio State, but even if you take an L in that game, you still get a chance to play in meaningful games in December/January. Whereas before, you were going to play in a bowl game. And and as I mentioned before with Kenny Pickett and Pitt won its first ever ACC championship and played in a relatively meaningless Peach Bowl game against Michigan State. And so Kenny Pickett sits out. He's their starting quarterback on their first ever ACC champion, and he sits out. Cincinnati, when I lived in Cincinnati in 2009, put together an undefeated season. They were 1 second away. If a pass by Colt McCoy, I think it was, had fallen out of bounds 1 second earlier, Texas would not have been able to kick a winning field goal against Nebraska in their championship game in the Big 12. And Cincinnati might have gone to the college football playoff that year. So what happens when they don't end up in the college football playoff? Their coach leaves. Doesn't matter. They're undefeated. Who cares? It's just a meaningless bowl game against Florida. Who cares? Brian Kelly just walks away. How can you tell me every game mattered when the coaches and the players didn't even play? They didn't even stay involved. People blame the players for sitting out bowl games, but coaches have been doing it for 30 years because they got to get their next job and get recruiting. And that's how much the bowls meant. That doesn't happen now. Nobody is walking away from a playoff game because they get a great coaching offer. They're staying and coaching in that, and they're saying, look, if you want me, I might be interested, but I'm coaching my team in the championship playoff. I'm not walking away from this to start recruiting for your school.
Mike Decourcy from the Sporting News with us right now. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and we'll talk about some Big Ten basketball, a little bit more on Big Ten football, though, as well. And Aaron Rodgers losing last night with the Jets, although it was a good game. The Bills and Josh Allen continue to win. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Hard Truth Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Hard Truth Distilling Company and Hoosier Hanks, where this Thursday night you can catch Inside Indiana football with Kurt Signetti and Don Fisher. Make sure you stop by. That's at 7:05. Back right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
We can talk now, Mike. Yes. Oh, yeah. I hated not being able to talk. You haven't met Rob, probably. Rob, say hi to Mike Decourcy.
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
He is our new producer.
Congratulations.
Yeah, oh,
thank you very much.
Oh, I thought he was talking to me because I feel like it's been the biggest relief off of me. The last 2 months were like riding a tin can out in the ocean in the middle of a hurricane. Boy. Man, everybody's talking about recruiting.
Oh, yeah?
I get so burned out with recruiting. I'm like, dude, guess what? When they announce, that's when you'll know. I have no burning desire. Personally, I have no burning desire to know prior to, other than I'd love for someone to tell me and to have that information, but I just don't have this burning desire that I have to know this second. I'm like, you know what? It's going to play out. It all plays out.
Yeah, one of the problems with the thirst for recruiting information now is you can sign Liam McNeely and he still winds up playing for Connecticut,
Exactly. That's another reason why I'm like going,
yeah, it really is.
It's too fluid.
Yeah. It is a wild situation.
Oh, look at that little fun fact. Thank you, Jamie. That is a nice little tidbit.
Nebraska has not won a road game against a ranked opponent since 2011. We're counting on you to be accurate there, Jamie. Just saying.
Yeah.
You got to be right.
I'll have to look that up to confirm it, and we'll hear it later. Well, you won't hear it, but Signetti or from Matt Rule, someone asked him about competing against this Indiana offense. But he just went into the whole thing. He says, well, let's see. They're leading the Big Ten in passing. I think they're close if they're not leading the Big Ten in rushing. They have a top 10 offense in the country. They have a top 10 defense in the country. They're the only team that has not trailed this year, and they've scored 80 points in the fourth quarter. He said, I think that this is basically a top 10 team we're going against.
Well,
that's how you have to treat it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And Indiana has to take that confidence in there and believe in themselves in a game like that. But it's, I'm excited about that. I think it's really cool that game has the consequence that it does. I've been waiting. I wrote this early in the year, Jim. I've been waiting for this college football season for almost 60 years, just short of 60 years. Wow. I wrote about my memory of my first college football memory was like 1968. My mom and dad took me and my brother to my grandfather's house to watch Notre Dame play Purdue. That was the first college game of which I have a memory. Leroy Keys and Mike Phipps against Terry Hanratty and Jim Seymour. That I remember. Those are the four players I remember from that game. And Purdue won.
Mike Phipps was that back? Daggone it!
Yeah. Holy
smokes!
I remember that. That's my and my family was Irish Catholic. That's why they were Notre Dame fans. So I remember that was a huge deal. And that was the first college football season I ever paid attention to. But gradually you wait and you figure out, it's a fun sport and it's cool and it's great to be at a game on a Saturday, but too many games don't matter because everybody just votes. I mean, that's not a way to decide a champion.
And we got about 10 seconds.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Thank you so much. Joined now by the great Mike Decourcy from the Sporting News, and nice little tidbit from Caleb. Thank you very much, Caleb. But congrats to Sean Manaea, the Mets starting pitcher last night. He's from Indiana, went to Indiana State. So, yeah, I think the IU guys are out. Let's see, the Phillies are out. Trying to think. Cleveland's
still alive.
Cleveland's still alive. So, I forget his name, but there's a pitcher for Cleveland that's from IU. But yeah, that's awesome. Indiana State, nice baseball program over there in Terre Haute. So congratulations. Yeah, anytime it gets you get an opportunity to bring some notoriety to your school, it's great. Let's see. Russell wants to know, please ask Mike if Notre Dame could ever receive a top 4 seed in the football playoff if they went. Well, of course. If they go undefeated, of course they could, maybe, but
my understanding,
maybe not. Yeah,
my understanding is that is reserved for conference champions. When it was introduced, I believe that's what they said, and that. So I do believe, and I'd have to double check this, but I do believe that the college football playoff top 4 seeds are reserved for conference champions.
So that would make the answer to that question no.
Correct.
But I would be shocked if an undefeated Notre Dame team. I don't trust anything that the higher ups do, because it's like NASCAR. Well, they'll make rule changes on the fly. It's like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work. We're going to let him win this race, but you're not qualified for the playoffs. Whatever. It's just goofiness. But yeah, that's a great question, by the way.
Yeah, I just checked, and the answer to that question is definitely no. They cannot, as an independent, be seeded 1 through 4. It will be the 4 highest ranked conference champions which obviously will be the champions there's almost no scenario in which this wouldn't be true. They will be the champions of the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12.
Yeah, I don't think the ACC gets more than one team in this year, and that may or may not be the case. Clemson is going to have something to say about that, along with Miami.
Right.
We'll see how that works out. But then the Big 12, definitely I don't see two teams coming from the Big 12, although you've got BYU and Iowa State, who are both playing very, very well. BYU, are they both still undefeated, by the way, as a matter of fact?
I would have to look up.
Yeah, me too. But I think that they are both still undefeated. As I say that, it just jumped into my memory. But those are also, like Indiana, two undefeated teams that aren't quite getting their due yet. Matt Rule talked about that yesterday. He said, they're ranked lower than what you would think they are because they didn't start out ranked. So
right.
Don't pay attention to that, and that's true. The only rankings that matter won't come out until I think November 5th. The first college football playoff committee poll. And so that's a ways off, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to that because that's going to be where the eyes start watching and you start counting and the weeks, because after that comes out, there are only 3 games remaining. So that's when things will get tight.
I think that, we don't know where the season's going to go, but I think that there is still a mentality that there are only there's a certain stratus, there's certain classifications that will be allowed into this playoff. And I don't think that's true. I really don't believe that. I believe that there will be the opportunity for teams to earn their way in. And in this case, the team that is most disruptive, really, to the whole these are the teams that will get in scenario, is Indiana. They're the team that's most disruptive at this point. And now they have to continue to perform on the field. And the challenges continue to be set up for them so that they can manage them. They can handle what they're being asked to do if they continue to perform at the same level. The schedule becomes more difficult starting Saturday than it has been to date, but it's a home game. And then later on, the next big challenge, Michigan, is a home game. And then, the Ohio State game, but we've always looked at the Ohio State game as if they lose one and it's to Ohio State, they'd still be in great shape. I was on a radio with a friend of mine who was talking about college football playoff possibilities and didn't even consider the Hoosiers as a possibility because it's just the way you've been wired for 50, 100 years, however long you've been alive. You've been wired to believe that you have to have that prestige in order to get your name in front of the committee. But that's not true anymore because of the consolidation of conferences. You're going to play significant opponents. And because of the expansion of the playoff, if you achieve against those opponents, they can't ignore you any longer.
Yeah, and most people do not expect when they see Indiana, Nebraska on the schedule, when they see Indiana, Michigan on the schedule, those are just automatic losses in their minds, like they have been in mine for most of the time. But this year, immediately, I said, that's not the case, man. That is, and so... but when you're not around the program, covering the program and actually seeing it, I understand they're outside. So there's no reason to expect that until you change that perception. It's like Kurt Cignetti is trying to do, change the culture at Indiana. So if it's not changed completely at Indiana, why would people expect it to be changed outside of Indiana?
But I'll tell you what, we already have the next 2 IU games are sellouts. That's from what I read online yesterday. Is that's accurate?
Well, I had not heard that about the Washington game yet, but
I had heard. I read that yesterday online. So I assumed that was correct. I could be wrong about that, but
I'd said a couple of weeks ago that I would be shocked if Indiana does not sell out all 4 of their remaining home games.
Right. And so we see the change in culture really in season from when there was the discussion about people leaving early from one of the early blowouts to now. I don't think anybody's going to be leaving early on Saturday. I think they're going to hang around unless the game goes even better than we expect. I think they're going to hang around. I think this is a big difference in where IU football has been and where college football has been. I could tell you Saturday when I was at that Pitt game, nobody left the stadium until Pitt forced a missed field goal that kept them in the lead. And then at that point, I and a lot of others bolted because it was like there are certain scenarios, Jim, where when you're watching a football game, you say, well, if X is going to happen, I don't want to see it. So beat the traffic instead. And so after Cal missed the field goal, we were out of there. But that was like 90 seconds left in the game. Nobody left before that. Even though, like I said, it wasn't a brilliantly played game, wasn't a beautiful game to watch, but it was always suspenseful because winning that game mattered to Pitt. To start 6-0 for the first time since 1982 and to stay in the hunt for the ACC championship game. They would not have been a likely entrant had they lost that game, but they can continue to be in that circumstance.
Michael says that there are tickets left for Washington, but Michigan is sold out, and there are a few tickets left for Purdue. So no doubt that I would say all 4 of those games will sell out. Maryland probably would have sold out had it not been for the rain. Up till now, that's still been their biggest crowd of the season.
Right.
Indiana fans have to learn how to be football fans, Mike. They have not been football fans. They've been basketball fans because that's what they've had. They have not had football really. So I don't think that they really know and understand. Like if you go to a big time Big Ten game or an SEC game, they've been doing this for a long time and it's different.
It is. But I think they're, Memorial Stadium's a great place to watch a football game. I covered a couple of games there back in the day. I remember I covered Tim Couch throwing 7 touchdown passes against the Hoosiers once when I was in Cincinnati. Great sight lines, obviously a beautiful atmosphere. And now that at this point they've got huge games to play. And like I said, I'm really excited about this weekend in college football. I've enjoyed this season as much as I should say more than I expected to, because I didn't expect stories like Pitt and Indiana to develop. I mean, who knows where they come from, and I know that what it means. It doesn't just is a conference championship important? Yes, I think they're underrated, to be honest with you, in many respects. But that that conference championship should lead somewhere. It should take you somewhere. And I remember covering Penn State against Wisconsin. I know I've gone over this before, in Indianapolis, and sitting there talking to James Franklin on the day before the game and knowing that it's going to be an interesting game on Saturday night, but it's not going to carry the importance that it should, because whoever wins this game isn't going anywhere. They're going to the Rose Bowl. Nice afternoon, but not a consequential game. And it should have meant you win this game, you're into the playoff. And if it happened now, it would mean that.
What's up next for you, Mike?
I am working on our Sporting News college basketball All-America team and our preseason top 25, which will be out in early November, both of them. And also working on an article about the Sporting News Baseball Player of the Year. Ours is voted on not by the USBWA, the BBWA, the baseball writers. Ours is not voted on. Ours is voted on by major league players. So it's an award that carries a lot of prestige, and we'll have that out announced. I think next week it will be announced.
Make sure you look for that in the Sporting News, and make sure you're giving Mike Decourcy a follow. Mike, appreciate you as always, my friend.
Enjoy Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We've got more coming up. here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We will be joined by Trisha Whitaker, who will be hosting Hoosier Hysteria this Friday, and Zack Carpenter from Nebraska Rivals. We'll talk about this weekend's game. Plenty more coming from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after this.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet Southern charm.
All right, for this next one, are you wanting to do a short one and then a break, or just until
Well,
someone comes?
I do have an opening here.
So you want to play that? Do you want to play that rule?
Yeah, I'll play the Matt Rule during this.
Okay. This one we will be back at like 57, 30, 58 in that range. How about yesterday? I know Dustin was talking a lot about the Grizzlies Pacers game. Did you see what Edie put up?
No.
Edie ended up having 23 and 9.
Wow.
Yeah, Grizzlies won 120 to 116.
That's something. Wow, big game for the big man.
Yeah. All right, this next one we'll have it as.
So we've got to make sure. There you go. Like coming in and going out, they should be different. Like coming in is one, and then midway through the segment, just swap to another one.
Gotcha.
But each time coming in, this segment is brought to you by, and then going out, this segment is brought to you by.
Gotcha.
Please and thank you. Are you allowed to do that?
All right, cool. About to bring it back for you right now.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Tuesday. A segment brought to you by the Ugly Grouper, our good friends down on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Thinking of them, and I'm sure they're going through a massive cleanup still as the hurricanes came through, but make sure you stop by and give them a supporting hand if you're down in that way or heading down there. We know a lot of our listeners do get down that way, so looking hopefully you can stop by and say hi and let them know that Indiana Sports Beat Radio is thinking about them. But Matt Rule met with the media this week to talk about the upcoming game, and even though a lot of people are still, as I've just finished talking to Mike Decourcy, they're not getting the due that a lot of Indiana fans would like to see them have. But that's because, as we just discussed, it is Indiana, and people are just programmed that way. But coaches aren't. They look at the here and the now. because it doesn't matter what Indiana's tradition and history is. What matters is today. And this is not that program. This is a completely different organization. That's why from the start of this season, that was palpable. I could see that. And I knew pretty quickly that this was going to be a different situation. And it has been, and it's been a fun ride for the Hoosier fans. Yes, Russell, it is definitely getting chilly. Asking me if I'm feeling the temperature. If you mean by the big cool off, absolutely. Speaking of which, for tailgaters, buddy, you better be packing the hoodies this weekend. It will be chilly out there prior to kickoff, which is at noon. And all the students, if they're going to be showing up for that big noon kickoff, the Fox Big Noon kickoff that they have, the student pit thing. I forget what they call that. But anyway, getting back to Matt Rule, he was asked about the challenges presented by the Indiana offense, and he answered that and a lot more in that question. Let's hear what Coach Rule had to say.
What type of challenges does their offense, which has been riding pretty high, present for a defense?
I mean, well, they're leading the Big Ten in passing, and I believe they're close, if not the top in rushing. They're top 10 in the country in offense. They're top 10 in the country in defense. They're the only team that hasn't trailed all year. They've scored 80 points in the fourth quarter. So this is probably a top 10 football team we're facing, right? It's one of they started the season unranked, so they're not maybe getting the due that they're supposed to get, right? I mean, other people can lose to a bad team and they'll keep them in the top 10 because whatever they started in the top 10, but Coach Cignetti's done an amazing job. Quarterback's absolutely fantastic. They got playmakers. They're good on special teams. It's a great team.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And that goes both ways. Nebraska poses a definite threat, and they are without question, in my opinion, the best team Indiana has played thus far. Russell's going to be coming in on his snowmobile, puffed out. It's not going to be that cold. Dylan Raiola, just a true talent, a true freshman quarterback. And it is, that's a nice average when you're averaging close to 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That's the thing that this team has done that I've loved all year long is they have been stronger in the second half, and that has generally been on offense and defense. So it's going to be fun to watch and see if this team can keep that up. Let's hope so. But Nebraska is going to bring a determined defensive line, trying to get to Curtis Rourke, because they know if he has the time, he will pick you apart. And Indiana has too many weapons for him to get the ball to if he has that time to throw the ball. Indiana's running game is going to have to play a role as well. It's just going to be this should be a really good Big Ten game. It should be close. It should go down to the wire. I think that whoever has the ball last might have a chance to win this game. But I just think that Indiana is just shown that they are so consistent on offense that they score so frequently. That means you're not beating yourself. And even when you do, you're able to come back. I remember there was a couple of times, I cannot remember the game. I think it may have been the Maryland game where Indiana got themselves in a couple of holes on drives that were normally drive killers, but they were able to overcome those each time. And I remember them doing it a couple of times on a single drive. That is the mark of a really good, confident team that is just focused. And it starts with your quarterback, of course, but that's something that I think Indiana has an advantage over Nebraska at quarterback, because as good as Dylan Raiola is, he is still a true freshman, and he only has 6 games of experience in college to his to his belt. Curtis Rourke has got a lot more than that. And I'm pretty sure that Bryant Haynes and his defense and his game plan will try to offer something that is disruptive to the Nebraska offensive game plan. And we'll certainly find out. Russell says that Rourke seems like an NFL quarterback. Yeah, I don't think so. He does, other than, well, I mean, he looks like one, other than, I don't know that they have a deep ball. We haven't really seen the deep ball from him, maybe because it's not been necessary. We'll see. Brian says the FPI algorithm gives the Hoosiers a 76% chance to beat Nebraska. I don't know that I don't know that he's getting that kind of money, but that's interesting. John said that's why Russell. That is why that IU paid him $975,000. Hey man, if that's the case, it's working. He's definitely a professional looking quarterback when it comes to how he runs the Indiana offense. What I meant is that I don't see him translating to the NFL yet, unless he either has just not thrown the long ball. I can't see why he wouldn't have it, because he seems like a very, very strong thrower. But that's the one thing we haven't seen a lot of from Indiana, but they haven't had to, I guess. So, yeah, if I'm Nebraska, I'm blitzing often as well, but they have ways of curing that. It's called a two-step or three-step drop and bang. So there's ways to get around that. Football Power Index. I don't know if you're talking about mine or others, but we'll see. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State definitely have separated themselves in the Big Ten. Indiana has yet to join that group just because they need to beat Nebraska to do that. Once they beat Nebraska and go 7-1 or 7-0 rather, if that is the case, then you have to put them in that group. And if you don't, then you're just kidding yourself, in my opinion. So, but they have to earn that. You have to earn all of that. So, and Indiana definitely needing to do that. Big Ten games up on the schedule this week. Oregon on a Friday night game as they travel to Purdue. This is their second Friday night game, I believe. And the Ducks coming in after a great showing by Purdue. They put a ton of points on Illinois. How Illinois allowed that, I don't know what's going on with them, but it could be interesting. UCLA visits Rutgers in a battle of Rutgers is kind of swirling a little bit. They need a win there. Now here's a matchup. Wisconsin and Nebraska. Northwestern, two teams that are kind of coming off of a big wins and both need to continue. Nebraska, God dang it, Northwestern's Jack Lausch, really good week last week as they surprised, I think it was Rutgers. Michigan travels to Illinois. That's going to be a battle. That should be a fun game to watch as well. That's a 3:30 contest. USC goes to Maryland, Iowa at Michigan State. So those are some of the Big Ten games on the schedule for this week. And see, Jonas says in an interview with Signetti, the interviewer talked about how when Northwestern came within 3, he felt, oh, here we go again. And Kurt responded very confidently. Do you have any thoughts? Rob, did I misread that? Did who have any thoughts? Oh, do I have any thoughts? I'm not sure I understand that, but I do know that Kurt Signetti is never in fear in his team, and he has his team to not be in fear of anything. Is just to bounce back, to respond to everything. I've listened to a lot of things lately from him, and he talked about playing the second half like it's a 0-0 game, even if it was a 30-0 game. I'm not sure by, oh, here we go again, what that meant. Anyway, Curt Cignetti has instilled a confidence in his team. That is why they play the way they do. That's why you score 80 points in the fourth quarter. That's why you average nearly 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Most teams ease up. I will promise you, if you look at scoring for virtually all the teams, it slows generally in the fourth quarter for a number of reasons, but it's going to slow. Indiana does not play that way. Indiana is going to play until the end. And so not letting up is huge. Something else I wanted to talk about is Curt Cignetti staying in Bloomington. I do not see that as being a problem. Now, everything changes, but he wasn't looking for a job when he left James Madison. His wife, she loves Bloomington. He has said as much as well. And I don't think he's looking to bounce around. He's 63. I've said this before. He just brought us, half the staff came with him, moved in. They're not going to just jump up and move. And he's doing something that nobody else has done. That, to me, there's nothing bigger. It's winning at Indiana is much harder than winning at Florida or Auburn or any other place like that. It's a different challenge, but it's not the challenge that winning at Indiana poses. There is a litany of proof to that, but like that, he's been able to do it. So to say this is a no pressure job is yes and no. No pressure from the standpoint of expectations were low, but pressure of winning at a program where no one thought you could, pressure of getting the players to come in and to buy in, to do all of that, there's different pressure. So, how many of them do you see? Well, none. Michael asking, how many assistant coaches do I see leaving after the season for head coaching jobs? None. But that could change. But they've been with him for between 6 and 10 years. I don't know that changes all of a sudden. They're building something, and I think they're committed. So we'll see how it works out. Looking forward to it. Got to take a break. Pause for the cause. When we come back, Trisha Whitaker will join us. She's going to be hosting Hoosier Hysteria this week. Former IU grad, current sideline reporter for the Tampa Bay Rays. Will be all of that and more when we come back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel.
There she is. Hey, Trish, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. You jacked up?
I am so excited.
Are you doing that solo, by the way?
I am doing it solo.
Man, they put all the pressure on you. At least last year they gave it took two people to do it last year with Rhett and Courtney.
Yep, I know. It's I guess it's just solo this year. So here we go.
Well, they have a lot. Obviously, they have a lot of trust in you to do it by yourself.
We'll see. I hope that trust isn't misplaced.
Absolutely not. How's everything else going?
Good. It's good. Everything's good. Just down here in St. Pete, heading back to Indiana in a couple days. So
how the hurricanes? Did you make it through that okay?
I did. A lot of my friends didn't, but I did, so that's good. But I mean, I lost my car, so does that count as making it through okay?
Wow.
Yeah, my car was flooded with about 6 feet of water, so that wasn't very fun. So I'm gonna come back to Indiana and buy a car back there because buying a car in Florida during a hurricane is not a good idea. But yeah,
well, go to Andy Moore Honda, and I'll make sure they'll take great care of you.
Noted. So yeah, I will do that.
Oh, that's a shame. I hate to hear that.
Yeah, it's not fun, but that's all right. It's
how close are you to Anna Maria Island then? So you're just right around the bay, then I assume.
Yeah, I'm kind of close. I don't know exactly how close I am, but I mean, I'm right down the street from the Trop, and that got destroyed, so I can see it out my window right now. All the roof flapping in the wind from getting destroyed, and so that's not very fun. But it's just part of hurricane season, I guess.
Yeah, you guys are getting double dipped. Hopefully that's the end of it.
It better be. We can't take any more. I'm about to go over to my friend's house later today and help him clean up. So they lost everything. A lot of people around here lost everything. So I'm fortunate to just have lost my car.
Well, it's very kind of you. Very kind of you. And again, thank you so much for taking time to do this today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, I'm going to bring you guys back in.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, and an extra special invite as Trisha Whitaker joins us. If you're a Hoosier fan, you know Trisha's former Hoosier herself. She used to be a sports anchor on was it CBS station in Indianapolis, RTV, and now she is for what's this your 5th season as a sideline reporter for the Tampa Bay Rays.
It was my 6th with the Rays and my 3rd with Apple TV. So yeah,
rolling on, man. And Indiana fans are lucky to get her back, as this Friday she will have the honor of hosting or emceeing Hoosier Hysteria and doing it by herself. And I was last year, it took 2 people to do that, with Rhett and Courtney getting the job last year. But Tricia's handling it all by herself this year. That's how good she is.
Well, we'll see. The jury is still out. We'll see. You let me know Friday night at about 10 p.m. what you think.
Oh, no doubts about that. First of all, I know you have to just you have a job that you just have to love going to work to every day. It's every day is different, different game, different people, different everything, but that just has to be a blast to get to do.
It is. It's such a blast. I love it. So I cover the Rays the majority of the time, but every Friday I do Apple TV, which is a national Friday night baseball game. So that they picked up the rights to that in 2022, and that's been so much fun. Like we did at the end of the season, one of our games was Yankees Red Sox exclusively on Apple, and that was the game that Aaron Judge hit a grand slam, a go-ahead grand slam, and they went on to clinch the postseason just about a week later. So That's been super, super fun. And you're right. I get to meet new people every single day. I get to cover every single team in the league. So I know a lot of people in Indiana are Cubs fans. We do the Cubs, we do the White Sox, we do the Reds, we do the Cardinals, we do everybody. So that's my favorite part of the job, is just meeting different people every single day. No day is ever the same. It's the best.
There you go. Yeah, I'm a withering Reds fan. Just feel like a Cubs fan, but
trust me. And Tito, he's a good one.
I love it. They just hired a new coach and new manager and Terry Francona. So hopefully good things are on the way, maybe. But yeah, baseball season still in the playoffs right now, as getting whittled down before the World Series starts. And that's something you haven't gotten to work a World Series yet, right? Or have you?
No, because the Rays did go to the World Series in 2020, but that was the pandemic and we were not allowed to cover it.
That's what I was confused. That stinks.
Oh, I can't. I'm not over it.
You shouldn't be, man, nor should you be.
I never will be. I never will.
Yeah. But you'll get another opportunity. There's no doubt, because your star continues to rise. Looking forward to seeing that. But also Friday night, how excited are you and daunted? That's got to be a daunting kind of a thing. I hate that. Boy, that snuck in there. You talk about marketing having an effect.
They're a lot. They know what they're doing with their marketing with IU football. I've been using that word too. I'm like, where did this come from?
I swear that just came right out. There was no pun intended on that one. But yeah, it is a daunting task, no matter what, to take on. In not just you're in the middle of a crazed Assembly Hall crowd, Simon Scott Assembly Hall, and the start of basketball season, which puts people in a frenzy. And it's a party in essence.
Mm-hmm. Well, never daunted, Jim, right? That's our motto. Never daunted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So no, you're right. Honestly, it's so hilarious. So like, I grew up in Bloomington, right? My mom is still a principal in Bloomington. My dad's a pastor. So they're very involved in the community, and they've lived there since I was 8 years old. And I swear to you, I could call the Super Bowl, and people in Bloomington would not think it was as cool as emceeing Hoosier Hysteria. Like, my mom got home from school. She's like, I told all the teachers that you're emceeing Hoosier Hysteria. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, it is very cool. I'm very excited. But like, you realize I'm interviewing Aaron Judge on a regular basis. I'm interviewing Juan Soto on it. She's like, I know, but they're so excited to see you. And I'm just like, all right. But it is so cool. Like, I mean, it's just like, I grew up going to Hoosier Hysteria. I grew up waiting in line to go with my dad. That was back in the day when Bob Knight made everybody bring canned goods to the game. And, then the Mike Woodson or the Mike Davis era, and even Calvin Sampson. I was there for all of those Hoosier Hysterias. I went to the IU women's basketball camps when I was little, and that was just like my joy growing up. I loved it. So honestly, emceeing an event like this is like one of the coolest things that I will ever do, just because look at my wall. Like, that's the watch shot right there. That's Bob Knight throwing the chair. Like, that's, no matter where I go in my career, IU basketball and Bloomington and Assembly Hall is just always going to be right there in my heart. So I'm like so excited I can't explain. Try not to be nervous.
Well, they're fortunate to have you for sure, and I can imagine what the thoughts would be like. What are you going to be thinking right before you walk out? Because it's going to be dark, it's going to be lights flashing, and there will be some noise, by the way.
I'm going to be thinking, don't say anything stupid. I don't know. Like, it's just like, I'm going to be so excited and amped up. But I'm most excited just to I'm excited to interview Mike Woodson. I'm excited to interview Terry Morin. I'm excited to see the 3-point contest. I'm excited to interview some of the guys. So during the scrimmage, when the men's team is scrimmaging, we'll be interviewing all sorts of people. Kurt Signetti, hopefully he's there. I hear that he's going to be. So if he is, excited to interview him. The Fox Noon kickoff crew, they're going to be in Bloomington for IU Nebraska. They're supposed to be there. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see everybody else's excitement, I guess, because it's been a long time since I've been to Hoosier Hysteria. And I just have so many like nostalgic emotions towards it. So the crowd's going to be fun and the guys are going to be fun. And plus, this team has a lot of high expectations going into this year. So the men's team and the women's team. And so, that always puts an extra level of, expectation and excitement there, I guess.
And because of all these ingredients that are packaged together with the expectations of the men's team, the women's team, the general excitement for basketball that everyone always has for Indiana, and this football program, the 6-0 program that is looking to go 7-0 against Nebraska on Saturday. I assume you'll be able to be there for that game.
Oh, I would not miss it for the world. I'm so excited.
I mean, it's sold out in a week and a half advance. I just heard that Michigan is potentially already sold out as well, which I think that they'll sell out all 4 of their remaining home games without question. But this football team has been fun all season. They have been proving doubters wrong, but they still have to continue to do that for another 6 weeks because until they do it, I don't think anyone's just really going to believe it. But they've done it so up to this point so far, and it has been a blast. A Nebraska team that is coming in here, and they're good. This is going to be a good old-fashioned Big Ten game, and with a lot of marbles on the line.
I know. It's going to be so much fun. When I was a student, I covered IU football the season that they went 1-11. That was my student experience with IU football. And so to see them doing this, I mean, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season that Indiana was going to be undefeated and they were going to be the first team to become bowl eligible, I would have been like, you're on crack. What's wrong with you? Go.
I would have told you that. I would have told you that.
And so... And so, I listened to Kurt Signetti's interview yesterday with Hoosier Connect, and I just love his approach to things. I love it. And, he's asking him, he's like, we're not used to this type of mentality around here. That doesn't happen. And he's like, but that's just the way I operate. And I mean, that's just so badass to me. I love that so much. And you needed that for IU football because for so long, I mean, let's be honest. I can't even sugarcoat it. We were a laughing stock. It was like Big Ten football, but IU football. Are they really Big Ten football? They weren't for so long. I mean, they were, but like they did not live up to that caliber and that standard. And to see what they're doing now, I mean, I used to always tune into IU football games. I would never watch the whole thing because it would just end in heartbreak. And you're sitting there watching even the Northwestern game and you notice how much PTSD you have as an IU football fan. You're like, this isn't going to last. They're not going to win this game. There's going to be something that happens here in the fourth quarter. And I'm like, stop it. It's different now. But it's like that PTSD from the past. So I love it. I cannot wait to be there on Saturday and just see the hype around it. I hope that everybody gets their butts in those seats. And it's just going to be so fun. It's making me so happy.
Now, where do you get to watch the game, the football game from? Are you going to be inside or outside? Because it's going to be it's actually the weather should be spectacular by the time kickoff rolls around.
Yeah, no, I think the outside in the elements, even though there's not going to really be elements. I looked up the weather and it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. So no, I want to be out there. I want to hear it. I don't want to sit in a cushiony suite. I mean, I say that now, but maybe I would later. I don't know. But
I promise you, and the press box is very quiet. We can't hear. I wish we could. I like hearing crowd noise. I don't care if it's home or away. I like hearing that because you just get a sense of everything, and we can barely hear the national anthem.
I've spent years in the press box. I mean, for baseball, I don't sit in the press box. I sit right by the dugout, and I don't want to go to the press box. I love it down there. So no, I want to be down close to the field and maybe on the field. I'll see if I can get a pass. After emceeing Hoosier Hysteria, I might walk up to Kurt and say, hey, you got a pass for me? I want to be right on the sideline there. I bring good luck, I promise.
I don't think you'll have any problem with that. What is coming up besides all this excitement this weekend? What is happening with you?
I come back in the fall in the off season and I teach at IU. So I'll be in Bloomington for the next at least 8 weeks teaching a sportscasting class. I love to do it. I love my students. I take a break from the broadcasting realm because during baseball, it's 7 straight months of every single day. I mean, you're lucky if you get a day off every 2 weeks.
Yep.
So a lot of people are like, oh, in the baseball off season, why don't you do like basketball? And it's not that I wouldn't. I would maybe do basketball, but if I did, it would be like maybe once a week. Like you don't want to go. I don't know how some of these broadcasters do it who go straight from baseball to like NBA or something. I'm like, do you have it? Like, I can't. Like, I want to go see my nephew. I want to go see my grandparents. I want to go see my parents. I want to hang out with my family. Because during the baseball season, they know, like, you text me on a Monday, I'll get back to you on a Saturday because I don't have, sorry, can't baseball buy, that type of thing. Like, it's just so insane. So in the off season, I come back to Bloomington and I live a slower life and I love it. I hang out with my parents. I go to Uptown Cafe for breakfast, at least once a week. I love the upstairs pub, frequent visitor there. And I just kind of hang out. I do a lot of cooking and I teach my students twice a week and that's what I do. And I love it. So that's what's next for me.
We'll have to get you over to the Hard Truth Distilling Company as well for a nice
I
visit.
want to go. I would love to. I would love to.
You let me know when you're going and we'll get you set up.
I go to a lot of Pacers games too because I did work in Indianapolis for 4 years, so I still have so many friends up there, but I go to a lot of Pacers games. Big basketball fan, obviously.
Pacers just getting underway as the preseason now. They've got one preseason game left, but that season about underway as well. But yeah, whenever you have the opportunity, let me know and we'll set you up for a visit over at the distillery, get you a tour and all of that stuff.
Oh my gosh, I'd love that.
Go. Absolutely. Well, I cannot thank you enough. And we are so looking forward to seeing you on Friday night. And of course, you'll be at the game on Saturday as well. But enjoy your trip in. And thank you again so much. We appreciate you, Trisha.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you. We'll see you there.
Absolutely. Trisha Whitaker joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. We've got more when we come back. Zack Carpenter from the Nebraska rival site will join us, and we'll get an opinion from the other side as to what the Cornhuskers think as they'll come in to try to take on the 6-0 Indiana Hoosiers on Saturday and move up in the Big Ten standings. Back with more from the Hard Truth Distillery Studios right after this.
Segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore.
About we got some breaking news out of the NFL right now.
Yeah, what's that?
Devontae Adams to the Jets.
Well, Aaron Rodgers must have just made a demand.
Yeah, especially after that loss yesterday. His receivers can't run routes. They're falling down. Hey, go get my buddy. He wants out. We want him.
Well, he called some receiver out.
Yeah, it was Mike Williams. That was bad yesterday.
You know what? I need to text this dude. Did you send?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent that one to him. What? Like 5 minutes before 10 minutes before we started.
Let's see. The heck? What am I looking for? Damn it. Well, that was a good one.
Yeah. I mean, like she said, with all that stuff that happened down there, like, sucks that she lost her car, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
What time do we go? We have about like another minute.
Man. I don't have his damn phone number.
I agree with him there. He's 32, but Devontae's he's still a top 5, top 10 receiver, especially when you get him with Aaron. All right. You ready?
If it's time.
All right. We can give it like 30 more seconds or something if you want.
Yeah, I wish I had his flipping phone number, man.
All right, we'll go on 136. Here he is.
Oh, perfect.
All right, I'll take myself out. We'll go live in 10 seconds.
Hey, Zack. You have to unmute yourself, Zack. We got about 10 seconds.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Thank you. Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. My voice is gonna be a little off. I'm getting over a cold and a cough. Hopefully it's not hopefully it's not too much like nails on a chalkboard, but
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, and it has been a great start to the week and a great end to the week for Hoosier fans as it is homecoming. Hoosier hysteria tipping off on Friday night. A whole bunch going on, obviously, and the homecoming parade, and then but a gigantic Big Ten game this Saturday as the Nebraska Cornhuskers come in. Zack Carpenter from Nebraska's rival site inside Nebraska joins me now. Zack, first of all, thank you very much for joining me.
yeah, absolutely, Jim. Appreciate you having me. And for the listeners out there, I'm getting over a cold and a cough, so have to excuse the voice being a little off, but we're here. It's game week.
Yeah, it is game week for one that a lot of people have been looking forward to, a lot of Indiana fans and probably some Nebraska fans, very surprisingly, after a while. But if you were here a little like covering the program, you're not shocked like a lot of people that are outside are. But trust me, the Indiana fans, not only are they still shocked, there are still probably some that are waiting for the other shoe to fall.
Yeah, that's sort of how Nebraska's fan base is right now. I mean, yeah, who would have thunk it? I mean, it's almost a ranked matchup, almost 6-0 Indiana versus 5-1 Nebraska. That's surprising in itself, but Indiana ranked 16th, and Nebraska is in that 27 spot, the second most points in the AP poll, and that's not what I would have. That's not what I would have imagined going into this season. Although I have Nebraska finishing 9-3 overall, and I had them losing to Indiana. I had them dropping this and the Ohio State game back to back because coming into the season, I did the Big Ten preseason poll for the de facto Cleveland.com preseason poll, and I think most people. I think Indiana was picked like 17th.
Yep.
I think 17th in the consensus. I'm pretty sure I had them 14. So still not great, obviously, but not quite as low as the consensus was because thought Curtis Rourke was a really good quality quarterback in Kurt Signetti. I didn't think that he would be. I didn't think a 4-8 season was going to be in the cards for him, but to be 6-0, to have this matchup, be this highly anticipated, like you said, is not something I would have thought was going to happen. And but going back to the original point, 5-1 overall, Nebraska in there. I thought there'd be a little more excitement, but I think it's just like you said, sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, what about special teams? What about this? What about that? Like, what about these issues? And it's like, yeah, but you take the 5-1, man. Like that's the most tied for the most wins in a season since 2016 around here, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's been a few years since these teams hooked up. I think 2019, the last time, and that was in Lincoln. Indiana gets a surprising win there. With
it was 2022, my first year on the beat, when Indiana came to Nebraska, and they had the blocked punt. They had the blocked punt return for a touchdown. That was sort of the and Nebraska had fired Scott Frost, and then they go and get blown out by Oklahoma, get the bye week, get some things corrected, and beat Indiana, and then beat Rutgers like 14-13 on a weird Friday night, and they were tied for the Big Ten West lead, and then that was pretty much it. They're 3-3, and then went they won 1-5 down the stretch.
And the funny thing is, though, neither one of these teams have any resemblance to any of that. These are both two different programs. I knew that under Matt Rule that you could just get a sense that, okay, Nebraska finally made the right hire. It's like Indiana. They finally made the right hire. You have to make the right hire. And Matt Rule seems that the job is not too big for him. He also acknowledged, you can just tell he has a sense of noting the history and the tradition there. But he's got this team moving, and Dylan Raiola is just a pure talent. I mean, how good is this kid going to be? I don't know, but he's pretty dang special, man. When you can, as a true freshman, play at this level in the Big Ten, man, that's just not something you see every day.
Yeah, and after during the Illinois game, which was, even though it was a loss, that was his best performance. I thought he was hanging in the pocket, just NFL throws all over the field all night, and I was just like, people kept saying he's great at the 2-minute drill. He's a great quarterback for a freshman. I'm like, it's time we stop using that caveat, because this kid's not playing like a freshman. He had some freshman moments in the Rutgers game, but that was really the only signs he's shown of that so far. Like, I mean, he's 19 years old. He's a true freshman, but that's not the way he carries himself. That's not the way he plays. And I was on the Ohio State beat. I covered Ohio State recruiting for 3 years before. This is my third season covering Nebraska. So when he committed, I remember I did a commitment interview with him in May 2022, and I had been keeping in touch with him and his coaches, his family, since January 22, when Ohio State really started really started going after him a little harder. And so I've known about him since he was 15, 16. I'm like, this kid's legit. Just watching his tape, hearing background on him, hearing anecdotes, hearing about him, knowing even as a sophomore in high school, like every offensive lineman's protection and blocking assignments on every play in his high school playbook. It's like, that's rare for a high school athlete, a high school quarterback. And he's doing that now. He's in command of this offense. I mean, we saw during the spring game, they allow him the freedom to change plays to the line of scrimmage. Even though they have the headset, the coach to player communication, even though it shuts off at 15 seconds, but either way, there's still not a lot of communication being done from the Nebraska staff to Dylan Raiola. He's seeing the lines. He's changing the plays. He's changing sliding protections. He's just doing things at an advanced level that players his age don't normally do. A lot of juniors and seniors don't typically do. So I mean, he's the fact that he's been playing this well in his first year is impressive. It's really exciting to think about what's going to look like by his second, third season in college.
So as they take on Indiana this week, Indiana up to this point at 6-0 has, as Matt Rule pointed out in his presser, we played the clip earlier that Indiana has a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense. They are the only team that hasn't trailed this year, and they score a lot of points on the backside. They are a stronger second half team than they are first half, and I think that's on both sides of the ball. They have done a much better job, and that is a sign of a strong team, and that's what gives me a lot of confidence in watching them. Is when you do those kind of things and you're not hurting yourself. That's how you continue to win games, and that's what'll make this game so exciting. I think that Indiana's offense is just so prolific that they're just a machine. They score a lot, and not necessarily. It's not just in the points, but I mean their drives are successful. They the last game out, first two drives nothing, and then they score I think 5 straight or 7 straight, whatever it was. But they're playing every game they play from here out, including this Nebraska game, will be the toughest game they've played. And Nebraska is going to bring a great defensive front, a good offensive line. Indiana's going to have to get to Riola and make life difficult for him, and I'm sure that is going to be the plan. But facing this Indiana team, what are your expectations for Nebraska?
Yeah, it's sort of at odds with Nebraska has been a one-half team so far, whether it's in the first 3 weeks against UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, even Illinois. Their first halves were extremely successful, and then they start struggling. Either around here, we're not sure if we should talk about them struggling in the second half, or if it's like the strategy, a Matt Rule strategy to we have a comfortable lead in the second half. Let's try to salt this away like an NFL game where we're going to try to protect our guys it's a long, grueling season. We want to have 13 games around here. Of course, they're talking about 14, 15 games, like getting to the playoff. They're not talking about that as in like college football playoff as a goal. I think they're just trying to instill that sort of mindset for the future. Like we want to be playing one day. We want to be playing 15-game season. Like that's the type of place that we want to go to. So they just talk about I think it's sort of like instilling that in their mind. But are they a bad second half team, or were they going in cruise control mode because they knew their defense was up for the task and they could just sort of manage the game? And then Purdue, it was the opposite: bad first half, great second half. But I think more often than not, these games come down to what happens in the trenches, and Nebraska's strength on defense is that, like you said, that defensive front as a pass rush and stopping the run. I mean, they stopped Rutgers, Kyle Monungai, one of arguably the best running back in the conference, if he's one of the best in the conference, and they were able to limit him. I think he had 35 yards on 3 straight carries in the first quarter, and beyond that, he was limited to like 40 yards for the rest of the game. But the pass defense, they're that obviously stopping Kurzwork, that's going to be and getting pressure on him is going to be the main emphasis for this defense. And you're getting Tommy Hill back, who's a projected day 1, day 2 NFL corner. He's been dealing with plantar fascia injury so he's missed the last 2 games and most of the Illinois game. But you're hoping to get him back healthy if you're a Nebraska fan, and looks like you will. And then on the opposite side, you have Sierra Wright, who is a USC transfer and starred as LeBron James' son in Space Jam 2. He starred in some other movies and shows. He's an actor. He was an actor at USC before coming here. He was a football player and was acting as well at USC, but he started 15 games, played in 23 at USC, and he was thrust in as a starter for the past 2 games, and essentially a starter against Illinois because he played that type of starter level snaps when Tommy Hill went out. And he's been playing at, I mean, it's only a 3-game sample size, but he's been playing at an all Big Ten level. Some of the plays he's making, it's like very surprising. We thought, okay, yeah, he has a lot of experience, but he's playing in a bad defense. Can he be a starting caliber corner here? And he's been lights out so far. So can he continue that level of play against the best passing offense that Nebraska will have seen? I don't know. Those are intriguing questions. I just I think the offensive firepower that Indiana has in the passing game, it's you don't have to hit on too many explosives for those points to start racking up and start putting the opponents back against the wall. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen here. I mean, it's going to be a raucous atmosphere in Bloomington, and looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. It's just going to be a fun time, a fun environment. It's a big weekend for Indiana. Like I said, they've got Hoosier Hysteria on Friday night. So the crowd is just going to be whipped into a frenzy. But this is a game that matters. It has, not only does it have great importance to both teams, both programs, especially Indiana, because, well, both, but they want to continue that talk that you mentioned of. They want to have those conversations of 15-win game seasons or 15-game seasons. They want to have that talk of being mentioned in the college football playoff talk or the Big Ten championship talk, which as long as you win, you're in that conversation. But it all continues with the game on Saturday against Nebraska, and you've got to win that one, and you've got to take care of business, not turn the ball over, and deal with the challenges that Nebraska is going to offer, which starts with that defensive front. But I think that Indiana has so many different weapons, not only in the passing game, but the running game is a lot of different guys as well, that is going to be, along with the experience of Curtis Rourke. I think that will be the difference. I think it's going to be a close game. Probably maybe within, I don't know that Indiana covers, but I think Indiana wins the game.
Yeah, that's what I have too. I picked Nebraska for all 6 games up to this point, but I've gone 5-1. Nebraska's gone 5-1. I had them in the preseason 5-1 going into this game, and then I had them losing this one and Ohio State. Now, the reason I had them losing this one was I think Indiana's going to be a better team than people think. Like, I didn't expect 6-0. I don't think many people did. Indiana's going to be a better team than people think. Like, I think people are underrating them a little bit. It's going to be like, sometimes I'll if I have a prediction, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think I could see it happening. Just I'll chalk that up as my college football is weird. Yeah, one team should win, but college football is weird. Going to Bloomington where you haven't played a lot right before the Ohio State game. I don't know. I think that's a place. And the passing offense when it comes down to the X's and O's, it was, yeah, I believe in this Nebraska defense, but the passing defense is sort of its main vulnerability, like in the secondary with the linebacker passing coverage and the you didn't know what you had in the number 2 cornerback yet, and so I wasn't totally sure. I needed to see it first. I'm like, yeah, and then Indiana, that's going to be one of their strengths is the passing offense, like explosive play capability. So that's why I had predicted Nebraska to lose to Colorado, was because I thought they would be susceptible to some of that stuff early in the season. I don't think they're as vulnerable, Nebraska's defense, but also I think Indiana's passing offense is even better than I would have anticipated. So I think all of those add up to I think too many points on the board. I mean, if Nebraska can get consistent pressure on Curtis Rourke, then that changes everything. But again, I saw Indiana. I saw that the spread's -6.5, 51.5 over under, and Indiana scored 31 is their season low, and then every other game is 41 or more. And
yeah, they're averaging like 47 points a game.
Yeah. I think at home, I think at home, better offense is going to beat the good defense, or good offense is going to beat a good defense more often than not. So I don't know if I have a final score yet. I think I was going to go with 34-27, something like that. But I don't know if that's too many points for the over. I mean, over-under is 51.5. So
we shall see.
61 points is a lot.
Well, Zach, I cannot thank you enough, brother, from inside Nebraska. For any Cornhusker fans, make sure you're going there to keep up with all things Nebraska. Thank you so very much. We'll probably see you on Saturday.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Jim.
You bet. Zack Carpenter from inside Nebraska joining us. Big thanks to Mike Decourcy as well from the Sporting News. Chronic Hoosier, we somehow missed him today. And Trisha Whitaker. Appreciate Tricia for joining us today as well. We're back tomorrow to do it all again. Appreciate you guys more than you can imagine. Big thanks to Rob, the producer, as well. Until tomorrow, from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is brought to you by the fine folks at the Hard Truth Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.